What does good business mean? That means 12 months of numbers at 15 to 20% net profit is a business that you can sell. That's something that an investor is going to want to buy. Work out what your wages are right now.
Yeah.
The percentage of your revenue each month you're putting towards wages. If it's below 40%, give yourself a pat on the back.
All right, Benny's back on the pod. So my co-founder and also my COO that looks at not only our P&L, but works with studios and looks at theirs. So this is a second episode following the Danny episode, our profit coach in the business and in our academy. But the big headline here is I want you guys to listen to this episode if you feel like you could be making more profit, if you feel like your costs are not really where they need to be, or if you know that the financial discipline of your business needs to be held to a higher standard. Now, Ben looks at P&Ls, Ben looks at profit and loss statements for our studios, and quite recently has found $100,000 just in a couple of tweaks in people's P&Ls without doing any more work for that particular owner. All right, Benny boy, you're back.
I'm back, baby. Let's go.
All right, what's been happening, dude?
Interesting week this week.
Yep.
Interesting one. Shout out to Charles.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of, speaking to a couple of studio owners, and I don't know what's on. Finance is on everyone's mind right now.
Yeah.
They're looking at the dollars, they're looking at the cents.
Yeah.
And I've done a couple of sort of P&L deep dives just to see what trends I've noticed in the books and, what levers we can pull to help people.
Yeah.
One thing that...
Can I just jump in there for a second? Is it because they've proactively asked you for it, or is it because you've noticed some behaviour or you've heard some things and you've gone, hang on, let me just have a look. Let me just pop the button and have a look at your P&L first.
I've been looking at the numbers. There's a lot of owners out there, they'll feel the spidey senses, they'll feel a reaction, but they don't know what's wrong. But the thing I've realised is the numbers will tell the real story. So, I pop the hood, I'll have a look, and I've noticed a couple of trends.
But what are the symptoms? Like, what do you hear them say? Or what are the symptoms that you go, I think I need to pop the bonnet?
Yeah, that's one of the big ones. Like, if it's not working, like they're trying everything and still losing money, or God forbid their revenue is growing, their costs grow just as fast, and there's all this work, but at the end of the month, there's still the same amount of money.
Right. That's interesting.
Yeah. The core principle I want to talk about here is 10% is the new break even. Okay? 10% is the new break even.
Everyone write that down. 10% is your new break even.
Yeah. So when I say 10%, I mean 10% profit, and I mean real profit. So I want to tell a bit of a story. This might give Dozer a bit of PTSD. When we had the gym the first couple of years, it get to the end of the month, we'd dust off the zero file and we go, okay, here we go. Let's look at the old P&L. And every single month, we'd get to the end of the month and, we'd be a couple of grand in the black on the 29th or the 30th of every month. And then like bloody clockwork, we'd get the old one-off. The electricity bill, land tax.
We had to fix a
ski erg, broken floor, But every single month, we'd have a couple of lawyers. Shout out to the workers' comp. So, every month, like clockwork, just as we're about to clear a profit, we'd get the old one off. And for a long time, and I'll take ownership on this one, for a long time, I'd go, okay, you know what? No, we don't need to buy a ski erg every single month. So, we'll add that back into the P&L. So, we actually made money this month, even though the hard P&L was saying we didn't. Yeah. We didn't actually make any money. So we got to about 6 or 7 months of this, and our accountant goes, boys, I'm going to stop you there. You have 3 one-offs every month. They're not one-offs. They're not one-offs.
They happen more than once. They're not one-offs.
They're not one-offs. So from that point on, I was like, you know what? The zero file is the zero file. You can put it into a Google sheet and move some numbers around, but that doesn't do anything to the actual real genuine story. Is that your zero file is your zero file. So it's about taking that file and like seeing what's the story behind those numbers in zero. Okay, so 10% is the new break even. So why have I said 10%? Why isn't 0% break even? The reason 10% is break even is because, newsflash, you are going to have one-offs or exceptional charges. What that means though is if you're at 10% profit, those charges aren't going to throw you back into the red.
Yeah.
Even if you cop 1 or 2 of them, you're going to finish the month with a couple % profit to your name, which is better than any months going backwards. So the new standard I want you guys to set is to aim for 10% profit minimum every single month.
That's your new break even.
10% is your new break even. What does a good business look like? If you're at 15 or 20% profit, you've got a really good business, a really good studio, a really good gym. What does a good business mean? That means, like 12 months of numbers at 15 to 20% net profit is a business that you can sell. That's something that an investor is going to want to buy.
Now, to clarify, what are the assumptions there around people paying themselves properly? And
the assumption is you're paying yourself a fair market wage. Yeah. It's not a 10% profit and that is your wage.
There's no point high-fiving because you're at 40 and you think, fuck yeah, I doubled it on these boys. But you're not taking a wage, or you've got people that are below market wage. If you have to hire that person to replace that person, you have to spend more money, which puts you back in the
negative. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So 10% is the new break even on the assumption that you're paying yourself properly for the work you're doing. Okay. Yeah. Now, paying yourself properly is the next thing. So the first thing I'll look at is consistently, are you at that 10% net profit? And if you're not, well, what's the first lever in the business that you need to pull? So before, a lot of people will go, okay, you know what? I put $50 of petrol in the car and I put it on the company, or my son's got his mobile phone through the company. That's not what is causing you like problems with your net profit. The first thing to look at is your wages. Okay, and our accountant Danny, he works with heaps of businesses, big and small, and particularly in the gym and fitness industry as well. So the benchmark that he's given us is 40%. 40% of your revenue should go to wages. As soon as it starts creeping up above that, it's literally eating away your net profit margin.
Right. And why might it be creeping above that?
So what happens is people will, they'll hire without actually looking at their net profit levels.
Right.
So they go, I need a new trainer. I need a manager. I need a manager and a head trainer, and I'm going to do the admin. Everyone goes really hard on building out their full team when the net profit isn't in the business to do that first.
Right.
So in a perfect world, if you've got a studio that's growing, you're at 15, 20% net profit, that's when you go out and you hire the next hire. Your profit margin will come down to, maybe it goes back down to 10%, and your job then, as the owner of that business, is to work with that resource and get your profit levels back up to that 20%, because then they've paid for themselves. That's your job as a business owner.
And how does someone do that?
KPIs, Perfect. Managing targets, holding people accountable, standards. When I see someone who's got a net profit that's below 10%, inevitably their wages are way too high. They've just told me they've hired 3 extra people, and I asked what they do, and I don't really know. So there's a bit of sort of throwing some stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah.
But when your profit's below 10%, you can't afford to do that.
Right.
Yeah. So what that means, like I guess the financially responsible thing to do in that situation is to look at your roster, work out how much you're actually going to be spending, like to project how much money you're going to make in the month ahead.
Yeah.
Work out what 40% is, run the numbers through the roster. And if it's more, like you need to start taking some action, okay? So particularly if you're 50 or 60% of your revenue is going on wages, you need to have a cold hard look at your roster really quickly.
Yeah.
There's some changes that you can make relatively quickly to get that net profit up.
Yeah.
Almost within the month.
Well, like what might some of those changes be?
For example, just say you've got an owner-operator in a studio.
Yeah.
And they used to take a whole lot of classes back in the day. The gym's hit a bit of a plateau, but they've hired a full team, but the revenue hasn't gone back up.
Yeah.
If they're not confident in their team to be able to drive the revenue forward, then that owner needs to go back on the floor, start taking a couple of shifts to keep the margin in the business.
Yeah.
Otherwise, all they're doing is every dollar they're making, they're giving to their team. They're not making any money for themselves as a business owner.
Or they don't want to do that because they're over it. They better get pretty good at
leads and sales, baby. Yeah, you need to make money. The reason I go straight to the cost instead of the revenue side of things is you can make those changes to the cost side relatively quickly.
Yeah.
Right? On the revenue side of things, and God bless, a lot of the owners will go, oh, next month, we've got a challenge. There's always an activity in the next month, or it's about to be spring, or there's always something over the hill where they're, oh, no, this is normally a good month for me. But in the meantime, they're carrying that bloated cost base from month to month to month. And guess what? Like those revenue jumps, they just don't automatically happen anymore.
Yeah.
So the financially responsible thing to do is get your house in order in terms of costs. And then once you're making the money, hire the next person when you've got the profit to do so, and then manage them up to hit your numbers.
Yeah, exactly. So then make sure that so you don't live too long back into a deflated profit amount. You've got a really clear first 30 days, first 60 days, first 90 days, which we'll go through in like an onboarding episode soon on how to make sure that they hit their KPI so it drives your bottom line back up.
Yep.
And as an owner, generally you're replacing yourself as you go through and hire these people, right? So when an owner replaces themselves, what should they fill their time with?
They should fill time with their money-making activities.
Instead of
admin or
folding the merch again.
Yeah, folding the merch, plunging the toilets, all the stuff that you guys can get stuck doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that's really interesting. Okay, for our listeners out there, what are the kind of responses you get when you do these P&L audits from these owners who are really trying their best, and they say certain things that you have to kind of show them a better way or to correct some of their thinking?
There's some quick wins out there. So a lot of the owners I've met have got really good hearts, but they've been a little bit complacent with some of their finances. Okay. So we found some things. We found some issue where 45-minute classes were loaded in as 1 hour. So straight away, that's a 25% waste of money just because of a clerical error.
What do you mean? So like they're paying for an hour, but they're doing 45?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that was one quick win we found. Another owner wasn't really sure or comfortable about the wages and the awards, so she just decided to pay everyone at the Sunday rate.
Fuck.
Yeah.
For every shift? I might go work for her.
Yeah. What is found is, like admin and clerical errors of timesheets not lining up with zero. We've found, people not being comfortable with the award and paying overs unnecessarily. And the third thing is just, I need a manager. So they just go out and they just hire one on the hope that it's going to work and it's going to kick in and save them a bunch of money.
Mate, we're hearing people paying six figures for managers. And I'm not saying they're not worth it as long as they've got the right KPIs and they're hitting them.
All day, every day. If you can spend as much as you want on any hire, but you need to get 2 to 3 times back. So spend $100,000 if you're confident that person's going to make you $300,000 a year.
Yeah. What about this one? This is a classic from way back and it still happens. These uncapped admin hours.
Oh, admin hours. Jesus.
Can you talk to that a bit?
Yeah. So this is another bit of a red herring. Someone does bring in the manager and then you go, okay, cool. Wait, what do they do? What do you mean? I said, how many hours a week do they do on the floor? It used to be 30 hours, but now they're down to about between 15 or 20. And great. What's the rest of the time? Oh, admin time. All of a sudden, that's just not 25 hours a week of admin time that you can't really put your finger on. All those shifts that person was doing need to be filled by someone else. So it's a double whammy. At a cost, yeah. It's a double whammy.
Yeah. What about, do you see anything, a sort of trend with like distant owners or owners that aren't necessarily at the studio because they might have a full-time job? And so maybe through the frame of like not wanting to upset the team because they feel like they don't have power in that relationship, that they overpay everyone and they put more people on so they don't leave because that owner's in a full-time job. Does that happen?
Yeah, that happens. Yeah. So they overstaff, they overpay. They do it, out of two things. Out of that, they love their team, they love their studio, but also they're often those distant owners. So they're almost a prisoner about it.
Wow.
The feedback I hear on that is, I've got to look after them. What if they leave? I can't cut their shifts. What if they leave? And my response is always the same. If you don't cut your shifts down right now, like you're going to be out of business in 3 to 6 months and no one's going to have a job. So it's probably better that Johnny goes down a couple of shifts and you take 2 more shifts on and everyone keeps their jobs than this persists and there's no more gym in 3 to 6 months.
So I love that financial discipline around that, making those decisions there. How do you balance that with not entering the death spiral? And if there's a 9:30 class with not enough members in there and then people start, cutting shifts and 2 trainers come down to 1 and start taking shifts off the timetable, how do you balance financial responsibility and discipline with not entering the death spiral?
For an owner-operator, I'm not saying there's one person on every shift. Johnny one shift does everything.
Yeah.
This is about like financial standards and also the service level standards. So instead of having 2 trainers on that shift, if you need to get into 1 trainer, well, the other trainer is you as the owner. Maintain those service levels so that the standards don't drop, and absolutely replace yourself out of that shift when there's money in the budget for that. So this isn't, no one's going to save themselves to 300, 400 members. No. You can't do that. I'm not saying cut everything down to 1 shift, 1 trainer per session. Absolutely not. Like, you want an awesome vibe, you want amazing sessions, you want really good trainers who you pay really well. But guess what? Like, you need to have the profit in the business to be able to do that.
Yeah. I'm loving this. All right. So to wrap this up, let's give our listeners some really...
Bit of homework?
Some homework and some tactical things.
Perfect. All right. The homework that you can take away from this is pull out your Xero file and work out what your wages are right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Work out the percentage of your revenue each month that you're putting towards wages. If it's below 40%, give yourself a pat on the back. And I'm going to make
a pay rise.
And a pay rise, absolutely. And I'll make a little wager with you that if your wages are around that 40%, you're going to have net profit over 10%. Okay. If your wages are above 40%, particularly if they're above 50 or 60%, get out your roster right now and work out what changes you can make in the next month ahead to get your wages down. Look, you can't do it in a month. It's not going to go from 60% to 40%, but you can't let it stay at 60% without doing something. So have that financial mindset around what you can do around getting your wages as close to that 40% as soon as you can. And you'll be thanking me because your profit number will go up.
What if you get a stressed out owner who's burnt out, their wage costs are at 20%?
Okay, well, it's time to hire then. It's time to hire.
That's interesting.
Yes. If you're if you're running every shift yourself, burn out, but you've got a really good profit margin, that is actually a sign to hire.
Yeah.
Like you need to bring someone on to shoulder the burden with you.
Yeah. Don't hire 5 of us because you're burnt out and you're at 40% profit.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
You are a rich slave.
You're a rich slave. Yeah. That's a warning sign as well of that you are eventually going to, like for that owner, my question would be, okay, well, like what are your Christmas plans? Have you got a holiday planned? Or guess what? No, you're working every bloody shift.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're building a business. Otherwise, 40% profit and you're doing everything. You are that rich slave.
Okay. So sounds like it's like first bit of homework is run the numbers. And figure out your wage ratio. So then there's a decision tree. If under 40% and you're cooked, if you're captain burnout and you're at 20% wage costs, look to hire and find your next superstar and then start replacing yourself and then make more money and then get more money to...
Then build a bigger team and keep going.
Build a bigger team.
Rinse and repeat.
You're at 40% or you're within the healthy range and you're making profit.
Happy days. Yeah, happy days.
Well done.
You're a great business.
Yeah, good. Your wage costs are way blown out. They're at 50%, 60%, and you're like and your P&L's redlining every month, and you're getting these one-offs, and you keep dipping under break even again.
Time to take some action. Start with your roster. Work out what levers you can pull to reduce your wage costs by taking on shifts yourself, or where appropriate, looking at your team. If there's 3 people on one shift, then you might need to drop down to 2-1.
Perfect. And your other big takeaway is 10%.
10% is the new break even.